Got
What
it
shirt is
something like
that?
that. Yeah, I got it at, I don't know, Marshalls or somewhere like
RJ?
that. Yeah.
You're a RJ type of guy. Look at you,
Oh,
handsome.
yeah.
Let's go.
Hey, Fish, guess what? We are live, and if you are a football nut, then tonight's show is a good one for you. We're talking hot stove football with a man who knows about the NFL draft and the combine. Our special guest is Chris Landry, who runs his own coaching and consulting business for NFL and college football teams. And folks, also drop us any questions you might have for Chris on a prospect or your team. Put it in the chat box right here. The Daly Fish Hardline has some questions for Chris as well. Plus, the Hardline with John Hardison will also give us betting picks and prop bets. We asked this question: are you having football withdrawals? Don't worry, Daly Fish has your remedy. Plus, we have our schmuck of the week, and who's got the swag experienced a frozen pickle in Beijing? We'll explain. And we have big blockbusters
Wow,
and books.
you're a great writer.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Daily Fish. John Daly here with Eric Snyder, a.k.a. Fish. We're coast to coast, coming to you from Las Vegas and Myrtle Beach. We talk sports, entertainment, and everything in between in a way you won't get anywhere else. Fish, if you love the machinations of football, then folks are going to love this show. I cannot wait for this show.
Frozen pickle. Do you think it was kosher?
I would hope so.
Maybe
Although it
dill.
was in Beijing. It was in Beijing, so I'm not certain. So,
Oh, great. Kung,
all right.
Kung Pao frozen pickle. Jesus. Let's roll.
All right, here we go. It is time for the daily grind. First, college hoops icon Dick Vitale is battling throat cancer at the age of 82. He is home after surgery, but he's going to be missing the rest of this season, his 41st with ESPN. He says he will be back for the 22-23 season. Fish, I got to tell you, this is a tough one. That's a tough one to take.
Yeah, I know you know him personally, and you'll tell after I do my spiel, you'll tell what a great man he is. But I'll tell you what, is there a greater ambassador to the game than this man, who with every delivery he's ever done has brought enthusiasm and class to the sport of college basketball. The only downfall is that ESPN, he's a member of ESPN, and ESPN has to give over the tournament to CBS. I would love to
Yeah.
see him with Billy Packer and Jim Nance and all the guys all the great broadcasters that have done the tournament. He's special. I heard a great quote in sport from SportsIllustrated.com. He said Dickie V was told that he can't use his voice. It's like telling Joey Chestnut he can't eat, you know.
Yeah.
But John, you know the man personally.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. Go.
Yeah, I spent some time with Dickie at the Jimmy V celebrity golf event a number of years ago. We had breakfast together a number of times, and you just got to tell you what a great guy. Friendly. He's not over the top like he's on the air when you're with him. So we certainly do wish him a quick recovery and can't wait for his courtside, oh baby, to be back with us soon. So anyway, I'm glad we had a little talk about Dickie V. That's for sure. All right, next, the Olympics. They were a bust, as we predicted here. And we gave you all the reasons for this, but let me ask you this. Could the Beijing Olympics be the last or at least the beginning of the end? Give us your prediction, Fish.
No, it's not going to be the beginning of the end. It's just the circumstances surrounding this Olympics. The timing was horrible. Okay, you started the Olympics during the championship game of the NFL, or maybe a week later, but you have so much talk. The Brian Flores lawsuit, the Russian-Ukraine incident. You laid out this whole timeline last week on the show, and then of course the Super Bowl. And then there's no real names in this whole thing. And then there's a controversy that if the Russian skater wins, there's no medals. You didn't endear yourself to an audience by making any kind of the Olympics being fun. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you hit all those, and I think they all kind of amalgamized together. Certainly the time frame I think was a problem for a lot of Americans. The next three are in Paris, Milan, and LA, so they're kind of easier for an American audience. But at the same time, too, we don't know what's going to be happening 2, 4, 6 years from now as far as what's going on in the social world and what's going on internationally as well. So I don't know. I don't know if I can even give you a prediction on that, but you're telling me you do.
I can give you a prediction. You and I will be in Paris, Milan, and our hometown of LA. Could you imagine the food and the clothing and the people and the excitement? Hopefully, the world gets in a better pattern right now, and there's a better vibe going on. I think those three cities right there right now it's going on politically in Beijing. It's a better look for the Olympics.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think a gendarme will come up to us and say, I'm arresting you too immediately. I can see that happening when we're there.
Good
All right.
remark.
Hey, however, we talked about not so great ratings at the Olympics, but we're seeing big ratings for a number of entertainment shows, and all of them are wrapping up final seasons. The Walking Dead is finally kind of zombied out. Ozark wraps up the Bird family through Redneckville. And Fish, your favorite, Better Call Saul, a prequel to Breaking Bad, is ready to end after a 2.5 year hiatus. So, Fish, we hit Breaking Bad's Bryan Cranston with this when he was on Daily Fish with us earlier. At the time, he said no to this, but let me ask you this. Do you think Cranston makes a Better Call Saul cameo?
Absolutely. I totally believe it. He developed this franchise called Bob Odenkirk, was blown up in the last 2.5 years. His movie Nobody, phenomenal, where he plays a vigilante. And you don't think that because he's a kind of a nerdy character in Better Call Saul. And it's a prequel. It leads up to him meeting Cranston and becoming a guy that has to go out in the land. If you remember, in the beginning of Better Call Saul, he's working in a Cinnabon. He's in witness protection. So I really believe Bryan Cranston, who's a phenomenal guy, is going to do this guy a good solid and come back. And that's what we're all thinking. But the writing's been so terrific that, Vince Gilligan has 2 properties under his franchise, and that's this, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. Is that a great resume?
Yeah. I mean, that's all he needs to do, and he's already in the Hall of Fame. I just, I've kind of written to Cranston. He hasn't really gotten back to me on this, and I know him fairly well. But I did get a little bit of a hint, even though he didn't say it when we were talking to him, about the possibility of him maybe, just maybe there. So I kind of agree with you if I have to do the intuition. And again, Brian can't say anything one way or another. He's got to protect
No, he
that.
can't. Yeah.
All right, and finally on the grind, how about a dose of post-football medicine? Well, we have it here for you at Daily Fish. We have a blueprint of sports and other activities to keep you focused. After all, you can't go all lithium, right, Fish? Unveil our remedies for us, buddy.
Okay, we're all married. We all have wives that know that we're football junkies, and they love football too. Okay, but there comes a time, and this has happened to John Hardison, John Daly, and myself, that for 18 weeks to 20 weeks, you get away with, I don't have to go to Costco on a Sunday. Football's on. I don't have to fix a drip system in the backyard. Football's on. That ended this past week. You can't tell your wife I watched a college football game that was on, the bowl game that was on the 19th, the Black College Football All-Star game, and you taped it, it doesn't work. So all your honeydews come to fruition. Let me show you a couple of memes. Check this out. This is me and John, or John and myself. That's hardline too. This is me. This guy even looks like me a little bit. This is what I go through for weeks after football. I sit in my chair in my backyard. Look at me at the dinner table. I can't even enjoy a plate of pasta. And that's the kids in the neighborhood looking at me and my empty pool that's being empty before we get out here in Las Vegas, contemplating what the hell am I going to do without football? Well, let me tell you something. We have golf. We have baseball. We have basketball. The tournament's starting. We have hockey. And then we have the USFL, which, by the way, has its first draft tonight as we speak, rounds 1 through 35 rounds of draft. But if you really want to do what I'm going to do, you think about doing the inevitable. Find the nearest cryogenic chamber, jump in there for 8 months, and that's it. Wake up in August, and then you could just bypass everything. Get a little, little awakenings like they did in the movie with Robin Williams and De Niro. The draft, you awaken, free agency, you awaken, and the rest of the time you're asleep on ice.
Yeah, and then all you got to do is just watch the episodes of Daily Fish, and you'll be caught up on everything, right?
Yeah, I can do that. I do that on lithium anyways.
All right, and that is the Daily Grind. Hey, folks, questions or comments during the live show, use the chat box here. After, you can email us at dailyfish1, the number 1, dailyfish1@gmail.com. You can also post to Facebook at daily.fish.5. Better yet, record yourself short, tight, and horizontal on video on your smartphone and send that video to dailyfish1@gmail.com. All right, it's time for Binge Blockbusters and Books. Go for it, Fish.
Let me preface this that this is not my genre. I am not into the Marvel comics at all. Okay. No, young people are. A younger demographic loves it. I started watching on HBO Max because my son told me to, The Peacemaker with John Cena. where he plays the character, the Peacemaker. And what he is he represents a bunch of guys that are superheroes that are in prison because they just let themselves go. They're drunk, they're drug addicts, they've killed people they shouldn't. And the only way they get out is they do jobs for the government that reduces their sentence. And right now they're going after an alien in the form of a butterfly that gets in your mouth and turns your head crazy, right? Fantastic. It's 8 episodes. I mean, it's a little raunchy, the cursing, but you see cameos in there from other Marvel comic. I mean, the real guys. The guy that played Ant-Man, the guy that played, you know, these people are, the guy that played Aquaman. I loved it.
Wow. Well, I'm going to go almost the other way. I watched the movie Unforgivable. It's just out with Sandra Bullock. And what an acting performance. And then the script had a great twist, too. It also had kind of an Alfred Hitchcock feel. Still, it got panned by some and ignored by the Oscars, but it should not have been. I would say go watch Unforgivable.
I would.
Yeah, definitely. And she's great.
Everything you do on binge blockbusters and books is phenomenal. I do stupid. I talk about crap we watched 10, 15 years ago, but anything with Sandra Bullock is phenomenal. I mean, I go back to the Blind Side she did, the Michael Orr story, and where she won the Academy Award. I mean, you can't miss with Sandra Bullock.
Yep, I think she's underrated. I can't believe she didn't get nominated for this. But anyway, that is binge blockbusters and books. All right, now it's time for something fishy. Fish, what is hitting your olfactory membranes this week?
Okay. I'm in the restaurant business for how long? I'm not going to say it. You all know it's decades, right? I start to watch, it's a long time. You know, back when All in the Family was in its first run. That's when I started, first run episodes. What I notice right now is when people send their food back and the reasons why. And I notice this, okay? You order a steak and you order mashed potatoes with it and steamed vegetables. And I call it the one eaters. They eat it one at a time. I see the lady, she's eating her mashed potatoes very slowly. She's done with that. She eats her vegetables very slowly. Then she cuts her steak and says it's cold. Send this back, it's cold. You waited 9 effing minutes to eat your goddamn steak. Of course it's going to be cold. And then when she's arguing with me about it, I try and be as cordial as I can and she does this and throws the thing on top of the bar. Well, what the hell's that? That's a cloth napkin. I'm not going to touch it. I give her another napkin. Does the same thing. She goes, honey, forget it. Don't send it back. You take it off the bill. Well, you ate half the steak. Okay. This is what I say. I can remedy this real quick and we'll get out of something fish. We got great guests on tonight. Don't be a one eater. I was never raised, if I have that 3 things on my plate, I'm cutting the steak, I'm eating potatoes, I'm putting the mashed potatoes into the vegetables, the vegetables on top of the steak with A1 sauce on top of that, but you don't do this in front of a bartender or a server. You don't go and throw it on top of there, okay? What the hell do you want us to do with that? Then she got pissed off when I put gloves on to pick it up, She goes, what are you afraid of? I said, well, I don't know. We're in a pandemic right now and you're blowing your nose. So I'm all about table manners. Maybe you could learn something here from a guy who's been doing this that long. And hopefully I gave you some etiquette on how to eat in a bar or restaurant.
That is brilliant. And I'm going to take the elbows off the table now because I was sitting the wrong way. All right. Still ahead, our schmuck of the week, along with who's got the swag. But how about some off-season prop bets on the NFL and their quarterbacks? It's time now for the Daly Fish Hardlines. Joining us is John Hardison from the podcast The Cost of Winning, focusing on fantasy sports and sports betting. Welcome back, Hardline.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me. I got to tell you, Fish, you're a braver man than I to pick that damn napkin up. I would have lit it on fire.
You're one of the guys that did it. You're in the shrimp basket. You did it. You wouldn't know that. It was a paper napkin.
Hey, you said, and even after I did it, you said, can I still have one?
Yeah, no. He does it, throws it at me, and goes, can you beat the goddamn Bengals? I had them with 4.5 and didn't do the over. I said, why is it my fault? Why are you throwing your snot at me? I love you. Let's get to the sports.
All right. Hey, before we hit the bets, it was just released that New Yorkers spent $500 million on betting on the Super Bowl. No surprise there. Now, by mid-2022, half of the states will allow sports gambling. So, Hardline, we think you have chosen the right expertise, my friend. That's for sure. What do you think of that?
You know what? Keep giving me odds, keep giving me, more and more people to add to the pot. I'll take from them. You know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be somebody that bets their heart instead of betting the numbers.
Well, and that's why we got you here, buddy. All right, give us some good prop bets on where some of the QBs are going, namely, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, and maybe Tom Brady. Do you have any?
So the biggest one right now that I'm seeing, will Brady play again next year? And there's some places that are giving it plus 750. I personally, in no's minus 1200. Personally, I'm going with the no. I don't think that he's coming back, even though people have been hinting at it. Tom seems like a very kind of definitive type of guy, and what he says is what he says. Now, maybe in a couple years, he changes that, and if you want to hold that bet, maybe for a while, if you do a future, maybe so. But I don't think that he's going to come back. I think that he's pretty much done. Especially, he's got a wife to answer to at home, and he's got to ask himself what's more annoying: listen to the wife or listen to the NFL.
So the Aaron Rodgers thing is it wait to see where his prize receiver is going first?
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, the league year starts next month, pretty in the middle of next month. I think he's going to wait to see what moves they make before he decides whether or not he's going to stay. But I think the Devontae Adams situation is a big thing. Are they going to franchise tag him, which could cost him, significant because you're giving him the amount based off of the highest player in that position, or as Fish knows very well, he's got a very good friend out here in Las Vegas. They were once teammates together. Could that organization lure him away from Green Bay? With a brand new head coach and Josh McDaniels, a guy who's worked in the Patriots system before, he knows what a winning course is. That could be a possibility.
Ooh, Fish, can you answer that?
Devontae Adams, like I said, the franchise tag started today. I'm almost certain that the Packers franchise, and they brought back Tom Clements. He said you're the quarterback coach for him for 10 years. They're making every gesture to Aaron Rodgers to bring him back. Every cordiality they could do, they're doing. And even if they don't bring Aaron Rodgers back, you still sign Devontae Adams, my opinion, one of the top two receivers in the league. Wherever you get it, whether it's Jimmy G, Derek Carr, whatever, that's a top receiver, and you need him. So he's not going anywhere. I don't think Rodgers is going anywhere. I'm more worried about will baseball season open on time. Hardline.
I say never say never. I grew up in the era of I thought Brett Favre was going to retire a Green Bay Packer. I never saw him leaving, and he most definitely went and played for two other organizations. So I never say never, especially with Nathaniel Hackett being in Denver right now. That's a possibility, and him possibly going back home. I mean, anything is possible in regards to Aaron Rodgers. And especially we talk about right now, Brett Favre. Who would ever thought that Tom Brady would leave New England? So anything is possible, especially with this offseason. Even when you look at, will Deshaun Watson stay with the Texans? A lot of people are speculating that no one's going to touch him until these lawsuits are settled, if he decides to sell them outside or where we go from there. But there are some teams that are very interesting that people are betting. Carolina right now has the top bet as to possibly going after and getting Deshaun Watson. Do I think that he goes to Carolina? No. I think that if he does decide to leave or somebody trades for him, the two most interesting ones are the Washington, well, I call them the Washington football team, the Commanders now, the Washington Commanders, with Robert Vera and a defense that's getting better, or Minnesota, if they decide to move on from Kirk Cousins. Those are two teams that I would say you should definitely look at in terms of Deshaun Watson.
Let me ask you quickly about golf. Do you think there's going to be a Saudi Arabian golf league to compete with the PGA and European Tour? Do you have any prop bets on that?
No prop bets, but from the information, it is picking up steam. I mean, a lot of people are really looking over at that golf league that's over. And Mickelson has already said that he'd be back in there. Bryson DeChambeau has already said that he'd be in there. Those are two big household names that the PGA doesn't want to lose. And if they keep getting more and more guys that are hopping on because the guaranteed purses and not having to miss a cut, money talks.
Yeah, I think, though, some of the latest stuff I'm seeing is that Mickelson's kind of backing away from it now, and he's getting ostracized by a lot of the guys in there. And I think DeChambeau's kind of come out saying he's not going to go to Saudi Arabia. He's going to stick around. So that's going to be really interesting to watch. We'll talk about that in upcoming shows. Go ahead, Fish.
Any prop bets this week in golf? I mean, the Genesis last week was terrific. Riviera is one of the greatest golf courses on the planet as far as scenery. What do you see this week?
I'm not seeing a whole bunch this week that I'm seeing. The biggest prop bets that I'm seeing coming out is really in basketball coming up, and that's NBA Coach of the Year. I mean, it is amazing the odds that they're giving some of these guys. It's an easy way to clean up money. Right now, Monty Williams is the front runner, but they've got JD Bickerstaff at plus 320, and his team is fourth in the East in terms of the Cavaliers. Spoelstra's plus 900, and the Heat are number one in the East, and Donovan's plus 700. His team's number two in the East with the Bulls. And if you look at their win percentage, how they've turned around, those are guys that it's easy money to pick up off of.
Wow. Awesome. Cool stuff. All right. And that is the Daly Fish Hardline with John Hardison and the Cost of Winning podcast. You can find him here with us every week, but also on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. But keep it tuned here because Hardline is coming back to join the discussion with our special guest, Chris Landry. Hardline, see you in a few.
See you guys.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. Again, Daly Fish is live on Facebook Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. You can see us on Facebook at Myrtle Beach Golf Channel and Myrtle Beach Grand Strand Life. We're also on Spotify now, DB&A Television on Roku and Amazon Fire. We also stream 24/7 on the DB&A Television website. And soon you can see us on Wingding TV. That's right. We're going to hear more about it coming up in the next couple of weeks. Make sure to follow and subscribe to Daly Fish Podcast on YouTube as well. All right, Fish, now it's time for our Schmuck of the Week. Who has been schmucky?
Well, we have a crack staff here, a big staff here over at Daly Fish, meaning John Daly and Fish Schneider. And a lot of times we can't pinpoint, we did this last week, a schmuck. So we have people sending us memes all the time through social media. So we had a few this week we want to bring out to our audience, and we want your opinions. And you can comment on this, okay? This is crazy. Look at this beautiful school teacher. See that lady right there? Mm-hmm. She got arrested because she was serving her students cupcakes laced with her husband's bodily fluids. I will never eat a jelly donut again. All right? Look at this. Somewhere in the Appalachians, Hardison, this can only happen. Hey, get out of the shower. I'm going to sit there and blow dry your hair with an AK-47 shotgun thing. Oh, my God. And you want to see one of my dates? This is what a lady looks like after she dates Fish. All right. Now, we're all look, we don't want to make fun of the virus, but I figured out John Daly found a way to fix the virus. He travels a lot. This is the way to fix any kind of virus.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Ebola, not today. All right.
Well, and it doesn't mess up your hair either, which is nice.
Oh, look at that. Oh, for you, perfect. You know. Yeah. Except John, John, what do you do if you have to take a bathroom break on a plane? You're kind of, you're done.
Well, I don't. It's easy. You just put a little slit in the bag, and then you're fine. It works fine.
Talk about putting a slit in the bag. Look at the guy sitting next to him. Is an acidic guy. They put slits in bags and do other things. But you guys, hey, guys, people, Daly Fish, don't try this at home.
Yeah, good idea. Good idea.
All right, now, if the football season ended and you're like us, this is what your ICU unit looks like if you're really having a bad time and you can't take life.
Oh.
That's all the shit that's hooked up to you because you know what? I need everything you can get. Zap me with everything. Give me any kind of IC, every kind of IV you can give me. I want it.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's tough. It's tough out there. All right. Let's see who's got the swag this week. Who are we toasting, Fish?
Don't get me going on this. All right. This is all right. Look at when you see this. Okay, when you see this picture, what does that look like? That's Olympic skier Remy Lindholm. Says it was so cold during the race at the games in Beijing over the weekend, his penis literally froze while he was competing. All right? Talk about a snow cone. Lindholm said the horrifying injury happened during Saturday's men's 50-kilometer mass start event, where temps dipped so low, officials delayed the start and even shortened the race's overall distance to 30 kilometers to try and keep competitors safe. I'll tell you something that didn't shorten. It was his dipstick, all right? But the precautions didn't help Lindholm too much because he said after over an hour race on the course, his junk turned into a popsicle. John, I do have anything to give on this?
I really don't, but I mean, it could be, a nice substitute for the little blue pill. So, I mean, freeze it up and it'll be ready.
Right. Well, wow. Okay. You know what? Again, we're talking about. I'm never having a popsicle again. I'm never having a jelly donut again. We could be crap for some of our viewers, but I'll tell you what. I know it's a crazy world we live in. I mean, we went through this today. Frozen penises and real jelly donuts. We got to move on and
my
get.
God, the things we've had to endure. All right. Well, that brings us to our drink of the week. And our drink of the week, we are going to toast. And what are we sipping? Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's bring Hardline back in because I know Hardline's got a drink with us too. So there he is. So what's our drink of the week there, Fish?
Well, it's not urine. It's a margarita. National Margarita Day, and we're gonna bring Chris Landry in. Chris has got a limited amount of time. Chris, hey Chris,
guys, how we doing? How you guys doing?
Doing good, Chris.
We're toasting you, Chris.
Oh man, wow, that's a
You're a legend. You're a legend to all of us. Meet John Hardison and John Daly. You talk to the Fish Man. We're toasting you. We're toasting an Olympic skier. A little problem on the course with getting his uniform off.
I probably watch less Olympics than I ever have. I don't know why that is, but I guess it's just a sign of the times. But anyway,
you're like a lot of us, that's for sure. All right, hang in there, Chris. We're going to do a little business here. Just stick around. The Daily Fish Drink of the Week is sponsored by Shucks Tavern. If you're in Vegas, great seafood and drinks in 2 locations. Head to Shucks Tavern on North Durango on the northwest side of town, where fish is overnight. Say Daily Fish Podcast. You get a free drink. Do it the next day. A free appetizer. That's Shucks Tavern. Check out Shucks Tavern on Facebook. All right, we're just getting started, and we're going to be talking to Chris Landry in just a little bit. But first, you need to hit the Myrtle Beach Golf Trail now. It has dozens of courses along the Carolina coast, and this is getting into high season, a lot warmer. If you're up north, that's for sure. It's going to be a lot warmer down here. You can set up an entire trip for yourself, your family, or a bunch of friends. Just go to myrtlebeachgolftrail.com. All right. Chris Landry is a former football coach and scout. He has his own coaching and scouting consulting business serving NFL organizations and college football programs called Landry Football. He also ran the NFL Combine. Again, Chris, welcome to Daily Fish. So happy to have you on here. We got Hardline here with us. Let me ask you this right off the bat, because the Combine starts Monday, February 28th, runs till the March 7th. The NFL has relented. There will be no bubble for the players at this year's Combines after threats of boycotts. Did the NFL do the right thing?
Well, you probably asking the wrong person, because when I was running the Combine, we didn't let anybody in. We didn't let any media in, no agents in. It's a work environment. It's a job interview. But there's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, but the NFL's made this a dog and pony show. And so what do you expect when you kind of relinquish that? And look, there's no question that it's become made for TV since the NFL Network was formed. But we didn't let any media in. And it was just not to be an a-hole, but, it's just busy. This is work, So by law, we couldn't keep them out of the lobbies, but we had it shut off, and we found ways to discourage them. Just as simple as that. We got a lot more work done. Now it's more about media interviews and what have you. So I'm going there. I've not missed one, but it's tougher and tougher to do our work because they're spending more time doing media interviews and doing other things than meeting is. We used to have a lot more time with them. With teams. But anyway, I'm not trying to sit there and sound like the get off my lawn guy, but I thought when we did this, we got a lot more accomplished in terms of the evaluation process. So
media gets in the way all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Fish.
Chris, you began your coaching career as a student assistant at LSU in the mid 1980s, but then you were on Bill Belichick's staff with the Browns. I think it was 1992. Could you see back then the brilliance of this man?
Well, I saw that he was special. On that staff was Nick Saban too. So a lot of meetings where my seat at the staff table was he was at the head of the table, and right across from me was a guy named Nick Saban. So guys that have gone on to have a lot of success. I thought both of them were special and unique, but to say that they would be the best coaches in NFL history and college football history. No one, I certainly couldn't have predicted that. But I do know this, that, there's this narrative that he failed in Cleveland. And look, I left to run the combine, and then I ran the Oilers scouting department after that. But when I left, I knew this guy was really good. And people think about, well, he failed in Cleveland. He took over a roster that was old, and he built it into a playoff roster. Yeah. And it was that very year that everything fell apart, because that was the year that Art Modell decided to move to Baltimore in the middle of the season. They were, I don't know if many people remember, the Browns were the chic pick to win it all that year, and they were on their way playing well. They come off the playoffs. They beat Parcells and the Patriots in the playoffs, and then it all, went to heck in a handbasket. And then a lot of the structure, the guy that I work with closely that learned at the foot of Bill Belichick like I did, is a guy by the name of Ozzie Newsome, who the foundation of what he built in Baltimore was a lot of what we started, because, people kind of separate them. That was the beginnings of it. And then they just, so I saw a lot more than probably a lot of people did, because I always laugh with the narrative. Well, he failed in Cleveland. He really didn't. If you studied it, if you look at the overall record and you don't pay attention to what happened, that's not exactly correct. But
Chris, it's such a pleasure to meet you. You mentioned the old Houston Oilers, who are now the Tennessee Titans. And there are two people that I've read quite a bit that you've been instrumental in bringing in, and that was Steve McNair and Eddie George. And can you talk about how you were able to evaluate both of them, especially because Steve McNair played in the SWAC with HBCUs and Eddie George playing in the Big Ten?
Steve came first. It was the year before. I go back to Steve when he came out of high school. So I was coaching at LSU when Steve came out of – it was small high school in Mississippi. So I knew him. I knew he was and I say this affectionately, as a boy from the South. I grew up in Louisiana. Louisiana, Mississippi, we go back and forth of, who's the poor states that get poor education, 49th and 50. So we have that kinship spirit. I knew Steve was tough as nails, just from high school. He was a guy that, all the SEC schools recruited him as a defensive back. He wanted to play quarterback, and he went to Alcorn. So obviously, as he went throughout his career at Alcorn State, and he played in an offense that was just wide open, it was not what I would call highly structured, but it had a lot. It showed and enhanced his improvisational skills, throwing outside the pocket, gun for an arm. But this guy was tough as nails. So one of the things we looked at, and in that draft, Kerry Collins came out. And a lot of people liked him, Penn State, and there are things I liked about Kerry too, but, there was no question that Steve was a guy. Now, look, I didn't look at Steve as this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. I said, this is a guy that'll be a leader, that the players will go to bat for him. He will be a warrior. He's not perfect, but he's a tough guy. And then, so that was a big part of the decision that we made. Ironically, that was the year that I got there, and you think you inherited a team that had the worst record, you're going to be picking first, right? Let me remind you, that was a year that Jacksonville, Carolina came in an expansion team. So they had the worst team in the league. We're picking third. So we're trying to, navigate that. So we draft him, but we didn't decide to draft him until took everybody down. Jeff Fisher did not want him. Jerry Rome, our offensive coordinator, who coached in this league for a long time, Coach Troy Aikman, among others, did not want him. This guy is not going to be able to. He comes from and so we went down, spent an entire day, ate some of the best barbecue you can ever eat, and we worked him out and put him on the board, and knew what we were getting, knew that, and so when we brought him in, we said we're not going to throw him in there like today. We signed Chris Chandler. And then we signed Dave Craig, and we said, we're going to play Steve when he's ready. When is he ready? When he's ready. Whenever that is, that's what we're going to do. And people may not remember this, that first year, we were out of the playoffs. We had to gut the roster because it was a start of free agency. So we had to gut a really good roster and start over from scratch. We played Steve 2 or 3 games at the end of the year and played some in preseason. We worked them in gradually. The next year, we was the Eddie George year. What I remember most about that was the fact that most people loved another running back in that draft that was good but troubled. Our GM and our head coach loved Lawrence Phillips. When we met with Lawrence at the combine. We knew there was some problems there that was likely going to be tough to overcome. A lot of people, if you remember, loved and thought the best back in the draft was the guy out of Michigan, Tim Biaka-Batuka. We loved Eddie. Loved Eddie. That team had Ricky Dudley on it. It had Terry Glenn on it, among other guys on defense. But loved Eddie. We were going to run a one-back offense, and he was going to be our feature back. We also drafted, a back out of Texas A&M that was really, really good. That helped us. But Eddie was a feature guy. The thing about Eddie was we had him rated highly, but we took a little bit of a risk. So we were picking ninth. We didn't draft Eddie ninth. We were pretty good back in that day of making sure that people didn't know what we were doing. And there was a belief because we kind of put the smoke out there that we really liked somebody else. And the somebody else was, they really went to Ohio State. And the rumor was we loved Ricky Dudley, the tight end, which we liked him, but Eddie was our guy. And so we got the Raiders to move up with us. And we got a 4th-round pick. That 4th-round pick became John Runyon, a Pro Bowl tackle.
Wow.
Who we got, who would have been a 1st-round pick the next year, but he came out as a junior, but we really liked him. So we got him on the 4th round with the pick that the Raiders gave us. And the Raiders moved up, and we moved down. And actually, we moved to 16. And then I got a little nervous that the Vikings were going to move up to get him. So we traded a backup nose tackle that Seattle liked, that we had on our roster, that we were going to probably cut after the draft, but they liked him, and we kind of knew that. So we traded that player to move up 2 spots to get Eddie, just in fear that the Vikings might move ahead of him. So we were off and running there, but we had him. We drafted Rodney Thomas in the 2nd round, who's a good speed back at A&M from Groveton, Texas originally. But the rest is history with those 2 guys. And then we won't have time now, but I'll tell you the time that we tried to the year I drafted Javon Curse, we tried to move up to draft the guy. We liked him so much, we kept trying to trade up all morning long and couldn't get anybody to trade with us because, a lot of people were – that was the year that the Redskins moved up. Let's see, was that no. It was the Saints moving up and giving up their draft, and it was a crazy day, and we couldn't get a deal done, and he fell on our lap at 16, Javon Curse. So those are the 2 you asked about. Those were staples for us.
Right now, Chris, we're all we're junkies for football, and we're all in that hot stove league, and we're looking for information. I know the league year starts on March 16th. So I'm going back. I'm gonna pick your brain. You got the John Claytons, the Len Pasquarellis. Now you got the Ian Rappaports, the Jason Lockhamfors, the Adam Schefters. You being at that, where you're the guy that can give these guys information. Do you ever feed them crap sometimes just so they could bring it out and tell us something and sort of like sow the line on that, or do you really give them some legitimate stuff?
Here's what I told them, and. Knew some of those guys pretty well. Chris Mortensen, really, really well. Nice guys. I'd say, ask me no questions. I'll tell you no lies. I don't want to lie to you, but I'm not going to tell you maybe some of the things you want to know.
Right.
I just, it's just, how do you want to play? It's just, but here's the thing. I went under the theory, and it's a different world because there's much more information that's immediate. I always learned early on that I got 2 ears and 1 mouth and to use them accordingly. And I tried to listen more and not speak a whole lot, but I wasn't the type. I know a lot of guys that would personally say, so like, for example, when we put out the smoke that we wanted, I never told anybody we wanted Ricky Dudley. But anybody that wanted to speculate it, I didn't deny it because I didn't say anything, but I didn't deny it. And if you wanted to think that, and if you wanted, that was because it can affect your what we call draft management and draft strategy, because if people know what you're doing, it affects your ability to give you a quick example why. That there was a belief, and I believe somebody in the organization kind of try to brag upon that. We like Steve McNair that John asked about. Well, let me just tell you, when Jacksonville was on the clock at 2, remember I told you we were picking third? Jacksonville was on, you know what Tom Coughlin did? Tom Coughlin got on the phone and said, we got an offer to somebody wants to move up, we think, for the quarterback, McNair. Do you guys want to move up one spot? Asking a third. Well, our GM, Floyd Reese, God rest his soul, he passed away recently. The owner was in the room, and Bud Adams, of course, he was tipsy. It was 10 in the morning, so he had already been through half of it.
Sounds like Daly.
It was in there saying, well, Floyd, don't lose him. And I'm like, oh, you got to be bleeping me. We're going up the third round. Well,
wow.
Finally, Floyd grew a pair, said no. I looked at Jeff Fisher. I said, no, I won't say it. No bleeping way. They're bluffing. And Floyd just said, no, we'll stay. 10 seconds later, Jacksonville hands in the card for Tony Boselli, who, by the way, congratulations, just voted into the Hall of Fame. The point is, they were trying to milk us. Why were they trying to milk us? Because they had a strong belief, and they were right, that we wanted McNair. And if you do, they could have easily, if he, in his mind, Floyd's mind, if that trade would have been made and we'd lost McNair, it would have been egg on his face. And I get it. That could have been like, hey, the end for all of us. But you got to go on your convictions. And this is why you try not to let people. So if somebody is telling you that the word inside XYZ organization is they like this guy, you can pretty much assure that that's who they don't like, because it's going to get used against you.
Sure, yeah.
Well, Chris, the game's so different from, I know, when you played and when you were at LSU to now, and everything's changed. Do you grade a guy, or do you look at a guy differently who decides to do like Nick Bosa and sit out a year, or someone like Kelly Pickett who doesn't play their bowl game versus a guy like Joe Burrow who plays all the way through?
Look, times have changed. You've got to adjust. If you can't adapt, you're going to struggle. Look, when I was coaching in college, kids that were injured were living in the training room night and day to get ready to go play in the Gator Bowl, because that meant something to them. It just, not for their pro career, it just meant something. We're in a different world. It's a different society. It's, the society has told them that you're not making money. Your scholarship's not enough. You NIL. That's the world we live in. So don't play. Back in those days, you didn't make as much money. Now you make a lot. So if you get injured, and so and what else has changed? We got a playoff now. So the bowl games are not as meaningful in people's eyes. Well, I don't want to go play in the Gator Bowl. I mean, what's So remember when Christian McCaffrey sat out the Sun Bowl? That was news. Now it's news if somebody decides to play. It's news that Matt Corral decided to play in the Sugar Bowl. That was news. Wow, he's playing. God bless his heart, he got injured. And they're saying, you shouldn't have played. We're sending, I don't want to get on a tangent, we're sending bad messages about playing team, but that's just the reality of what we are. So no, John, I don't hold it against a guy because he doesn't play. But I can tell you what, I'm impressed as hell with a guy like Matt Corral or somebody that says, I'm strapping it up with my team. So I'm not holding it against the guy that doesn't, because I understand that. But a guy that does, that guy's got some you-know-what in him. That's the type of guy that I like. Now, so I think you have to look at it. You also, the style of the game changes, right? I mean, just physically. Safeties in the old day, the strong safeties used to be in the box, linebacker builds, defend the run. No, those guys need to be cover guys now. So your critical factors and your evaluation criteria changes according to the schemes, the style, and just the personality of today's game. You can't sit there and hold it against somebody because they quote unquote quit on their team. I don't know that it's that way. We used to think that's quitting on the team. Now it's just normal. That's just the way it is, man. I mean, that's the way society is. 30, 40 years ago, what you saw on TV, it's not the same thing you see today. I'm just talking everything. It's just the world's different,
Right.
and I understand that.
Chris, let me ask you quickly. You were mentioned about Bill Belichick before. If you were consulting with Josh McDaniel, who's going to be with the Raiders, what would your assessment be, and how would you tell him to approach the draft?
Well, he'll have a good feel for it because he had his time in Denver. I think he understands look, you can't prepare for being a head coach. There's some things you can't prepare until you do it.
Yep.
I think he'll learn from that. I think he'll bring the philosophy, but he'll delegate a little bit more, not maybe micromanage as much. He'll be a little bit more clearly defined of what he wants people to do. Here's the thing about it. People have asked me all the time. I don't get it. All these guys, they learned it from Belichick. Why are they not successful? And the answer is they're not Belichick. I mean, they're not the same. I mean, look, I learned from Bill. I'm not as smart as Bill. I mean, it's just, but there's a lot of things. And the other thing too is Bill has kind of earned his way. We talked about the Cleveland situation, but he can do things. Or Nick Saban at Alabama. Think about this. Why doesn't the guy that leaves Nick Saban's staff go and have as much success? Because if you go to South Carolina, you're not going to have the same resources to be able to do the same thing. And you don't. And Nick Saban goes there and says, this is what I do, how I do it. Bill Belichick, he doesn't need to. I mean, Robert Kraft owns the team, but from a football standpoint, whatever Bill needs is no interference whatsoever. I mean, people say, well, could he do that in Dallas with Jerry Jones? They wouldn't take the job with Jerry Jones because they wouldn't deal with the interference. So the whole point is you can learn the system, but if you take the system and you go in a different environment and you can't implement it, well, then what good is it? I mean, you're not doing the same thing. So I do think with Josh I'm about to say in Oakland, in Las Vegas, I think he'll be better prepared, but will it work as seamless as in New England? I don't know that we can say that, but I think there is a chance to be a little bit more successful than it was in the past.
Yeah, let's hope these trees start to blossom. You see, Mike Vrabel and Brian Flores are part of the Belichick tree, and they're doing great. And Lane Kiffin, who I can't stand as a coach of the Raiders, but he did pretty good at Ole Miss this year, and he was on Saban's staff. Chris, real quick, John and I are always trying to save sports, and we're historians of all the sports. We go back to the 70s. And in 1985, I did some research. I want your perspective on this. The NBA and Major League Baseball were even with the NFL as far as ratings. We all know TV owns everything, right? You're a guru in this sport, thank God. Did you ever see it? Because you were around back then. Did you ever see football really taking off the way it did, and the other sports kind of leveled out and are maybe lessening in the fans' perspective of just watching?
It's interesting you mentioned that because I, like anybody else, grew up fan of sports, 60s, 70s. I always loved football, but I grew up. I played baseball, basketball, football. We didn't have, the soccer wasn't something we did as kids, but I loved them all. And I actually liked the NBA in the 70s and in the 80s. I mean, think about this. Early 80s, what was better than the NBA with Bird, Magic, Celtics, Lakers, Sixers? It was as good as it can get. I think what happened was, I think it's a stew of a lot of things. One, I think that gambling has a lot to do with it. I mean, it's a once-a-week sport. Fantasy football seems to be like hand and glove fit for football, right? I mean, I know they do it in baseball. I know they gamble in baseball and basketball, but I don't know that people get the same juice about saying, "Oh, the Spurs and the Suns are," and it's a 6 point spread. I don't know that. I mean, people do bet on it,
Sure you do.
but it's not the same as football. And I think that's made. I'm biased. I think college football is the second most popular behind the NFL. So I think it's the combination of that that's made it take to the different level. And I definitely know this the amount of money they make doesn't contribute to the popularity, but I do know that the USFL, which ironically is coming back this year in a different form, that's what led to the big money. That's when you started to have competition for players in the NFL, and that's when the NFL players started to make money. But the popularity, I mean, it was always the most popular to me. But you're right, it wasn't the most popular sport. I mean, I don't know that the rating, Super Bowl always got it, but then I agree, it's separated a great deal. And I do think that the special nature of football on TV every Sunday and Saturday are special. I grew up where, I mean, I would never miss a Monday night baseball game or a Saturday afternoon baseball game on NBC,
Sure.
or the Sunday NBA game. It's not special anymore. I can watch 15 of them tonight.
Yep.
Whereas football is still a little bit more special because you know what? Now play it on Monday night. We play it on Thursday, and we got it on Sunday night. But it's still once a week, and I think we get spoiled and we get oversaturated. What was better for those of you mentioned, and maybe John's a little younger. He looks a little younger than others, but the NCAA basketball, college basketball was great during the season. You remember with McGuire, Packer, and Enberg, and watching every game on the weekend. It was it was like it was as big as Monday Night Football. But what has happened now? College basketball has become a 1 month sport. In 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I guess, we're going to have March Madness. Nothing like it for 3-4 weeks. Yeah. But it the fact that we can catch every college basketball game, 40 of them a night, it makes it on Monday night. As a kid in Louisiana, watching Villanova in St. John's or Georgetown and Syracuse on Monday night, my God, there was nothing better. But now it's like, what's the Big East? Well, the Big East is now the Midwest and all the Catholics. I mean, it's just not the same anymore. I think all those changes has contributed to it. That's my best guess at it.
Well, was there anything better than, real quick, Harlan, was there anything better on a Sunday than the Celtics and the Lakers in the early 80s? Nothing.
Oh, nothing. And some of the stuff was just chunk. I mean, I can remember in the 70s, it's just like, remember what the halftime show was? It was Pistol Pete Maravich and Dr. J doing a game of horse. Because they didn't have, it was just literally, and it was like, but you'd watch it because you had 3 channels. The Olympics. I mean, I watched the Olympics every night when you had 3 channels. Because if you wanted to watch sports, you were watching the Olympics on a Tuesday night in the 70s. I can tell you where the 76 Olympics was in Montreal and Innsbruck, Austria. You gotta remind me that it was in Beijing because I mean it was just one of a million sports that are on. I just think that the proliferation, which is great for what we do, the more you have it, the less you appreciate it. If every day was like Christmas, they say what a wonderful world it would be. If every day was like Christmas, Christmas wouldn't be special. It would come 20 times a year. It wouldn't be as special as it does once a year.
Hey, Chris, we're just about out of time here. We got to have you back again because we didn't get into some of the picks. We'd love to get into some of the picks.
I know. I'm sorry.
And I got to tell you, great stuff here, folks. We've been talking to Chris Landry, football coach and scout who now runs Landry Football consulting firm for NFL and college football teams. Check out his site. You got a ton of football info there. Go to LandryFootball.com. Chris, we got to have you back on again before the draft. Is there a chance we could get you?
We'll do it. I got the combine next week, and we'll have some pro days. But absolutely, I'll be in touch with Eric and you guys. Give me a holler. And certainly do whatever I can. You bet. Great to be with all of you. It's just a lot of fun chatting with you.
Well, we'll have you
by
back.
By the way, Chris.
Yes.
Chris, you asked how old Hardline was? He's 12. Look at that face.
He does look young. He
Guys,
does.
12 years old.
I didn't want to say anything, but I'm thinking I'm gonna get a stopwatch. I'm thinking I got a linebacker there. He looks like he can still play. I don't know. I don't know.
Hey, hardline, John, tell Chris what your 40 time is.
Hey, I was a 4'8" guy, so
That's okay. That's okay. You two gap? I can get you. I can get you a job. Go ahead. I got you.
All right,
I got
buddy.
you.
Thank
Great
you
to
so
be
much.
with you. Thanks a bunch.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, coming up, we're going to wrap things up and give you a sneak peek at next week. First, check out Miracle Flights. They have provided free flights for those needing life-changing medical care, not available in their own community. I've seen it work before. Since 1985, they provided more than 127,000 free flights. See if you can help them. Go to miracleflights.org. Hey, folks, remember, Daly Fish is live from Vegas and Myrtle Beach. Catch us on Facebook, I should say, at daily.fish.5, the Myrtle Beach Golf Channel, Myrtle Beach Grand Strand Life. We're also on DB&A Television on Roku, Amazon Fire, and the DB&A Television website, and the DB&A Television website, which is dbnatelevision.com. Soon we're going to be on Wingding TV and YouTube, and we are now on Spotify. So there you have it. And also, if you can email us at dailyfish1@gmail.com. And again, thanks for joining us. We're going to wrap things up here. I want to get all of our business stuff out of the way so that we can chit chat. What a great conversation with Chris. And to me, I'm like, we could have done an hour and a half with him. And
absolutely.
I wanted to get into, I had questions about, the upcoming, what are you going to start looking at in the draft? And I'm like, we got to have this guy back on again. He was phenomenal in so many ways because he got into the heart and soul and the machinations of what happened in football, which I love. Yet at the same time, too, he talked to us like a media guy.
Yeah.
He was an encyclopedia of information. And for all the young people that don't know what an encyclopedia is, he's like the Wikipedia of information out there. And, hours and hours, it's, as I say, it's a blessing to be able to pick somebody's brain with that much knowledge and career. So we definitely have to have him back on.
Before the NFL Network took over in 2004, I actually launched in the 2000 Combine. Chris Landry said, "This looks like a goat. Look at this video. It's 9 seconds. The goat runs punch."
Who was that? Eli?
Oh,
Who was it?
Tom Brady. Tom Brady
Oh,
won a
Brady.
Tom Brady won a 5.3. You can run a 5.3 now, Hardison. And look at this guy. And they showed him. He had his man tits on, no definition to his pecs. His little hairs coming out of his nipples, Brady. And everyone was like, this guy's never going to make it, And
now he is a goat.
What?
And now he is a goat.
He went from that to this. Sorry, Marcus Mosier, but I get that in every week. But you're right. You're right, guys. What? And then the interesting thing, everyone wanted Ricky Dudley. The Raiders got him. That was a 1996 draft he's talking about. And then you get a 4th round pick for a Hall of Famer in John Runyon. Those are the kind of stories that they really get my juices going. What about you two?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought that was great. So behind the scenes of, the wheeling and dealing that you're doing on draft day of, feigning whether you like this guy or when you really don't and how you get him. I mean, it's good stuff. And it's a lot like that movie, the movie Draft Day that was out. It kind of gave you a really good indication. I almost think he probably was somebody who was an advisor on that film, or at least feeding the writers.
He was a consultant.
Yeah.
Okay, we got about a minute and a half. John, take us out. Tell us about big show next week.
Hey, next week we have scheduled a classic from the craziest film in history, Blazing Saddles. The actor who farted first in the campfire scene is going to join us. Burton Bubba Gilliam is going to be here on Daily Fish next week. So eat your beans, sit by the campfire, get yourself ready. This is going to be a good one.
That's great. I got a text from Marcus Mosier. Card Hardison. How old is he really?
I left it in my car.
Oh, sure you did. That's great. You do look, it's good to have these young guys with us. Your age, John and I have a leg your age because you're what, 30? So if you put your 2 legs together, you're one of your John or me. It's great.
Maybe.
I love it. Great stuff. All right,
All right.
John, take us out, kiddo.
Good stuff, folks. I already took us out. I already did all the business stuff here, so we're all set. So it's a matter of just we can talk and just say goodbye now. But we're going to be back next week. Looking forward to be talking with Burton Bubba Gilliam. I'm going to be looking
In 20 seconds. We start Heidi's Hollywood next week, John. Next Tuesday is Heidi.
You know what?
Heidi's Hollywood starts. That's what.
I forgot to mention it.
What? You got 15 seconds to mention it. Go. You're better than
Heidi
me.
Hollywood. Heidi's Hollywood here. Daly Fish. There you go. Looking forward to it.
Guys.
All right,
Great
guys.
stuff, man.
Thanks.